This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It's a Wild Wednesday here on KFAN, and we're taking your talkbacks for tickets all day long. Use the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app to tell us your all-time favorite Wild moment, whether it's a game-winning goal or your first time seeing them in person. Send us your talkbacks all day for your chance to score tickets to tomorrow's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Full info at KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Rock rank. I always enjoy Rock rank.
The actual segment or just the open?
Both.
Okay.
But mostly the open. Couple 13-14 passed. Time now for 5, 3, 4.
Time now for 5 questions. Well, actually 3, but 5 sounds like more than 4.
Maybe we should change it to
number 1.
6, 7 questions. 6, 7.
Time now for an in-depth look at the state of hockey.
The Wild have lost 4 in a row, 7 of their past 8 after losing 4-3 in overtime to the Winnipeg Jets last night at Grand Casino Arena. The Wild have just 9 points through 11 games, their fewest since they had 8 after beginning 4-7 in 2019. Common, is it time yet for Wild fans to panic?
Oh, sure. I would have panicked a long time ago. What I don't understand, though, and let me see if I can find this. I saw this in a Sarah McClellan story. I think it was Sarah's. I should have highlighted this. It has to do with your favorite player, Kirill Kaprizov. It says, did Kirill have another bad pass? Or
He turned the puck over in overtime.
Yeah.
They gave the possession to Winnipeg, and they eventually scored, yeah.
Yeah. They turned the puck over in overtime after winning the opening draw with Kaprizov's pass floating into Winnipeg possession and Kyle Connor scoring seconds later. And I thought I saw a quote from the coach where he said, going to have to talk to him about that. What's wrong with Kaprizov, Teneby?
I'm not ready to say there's something wrong with him.
Okay.
And this is still a relatively small sample here of some bad turnovers, right? I mean, I was talking about Boldy's bad turnovers a week or two ago, just that his weren't leading directly to goals. It just happens that Kaprizov's leading directly to goals. I also had the overtime one. Well, he's also good enough to be on the ice in overtime, right?
Sure.
So, your fourth liners aren't out in those situations, so it's easy to attack Kaprizov. Here's what I would say, what my guess is, just coming from someone who's played hockey for a while. Sometimes you're on teams that aren't as skilled and aren't as talented, and then you feel like you have to do more. So, right, like you feel like you're the one who has to produce offense.
Sure.
So instead of maybe making the safe play here, making sure you can keep the game going and you've got your team's going to be able to pick you up at some point, it's possible he feels like I've got to be doing everything for this team. So am I going to take a little risk here because I feel like if I don't, we won't score and we won't win? I think that might be part of this. I don't expect it to be a long-term problem, but given the current state of the team and that he's done this 2 games in a row, I get why there's some concern.
Here's what Hines said.
He's the last player I'm concerned with, but I think he's just probably trying to do too much because he doesn't have confidence in his teammates to be able to do it.
Here's what Hines said of
Kaprizov.
I see a guy that's highly competitive and wants to win and wants to be a difference maker. I think there's certain aspects of his game that I need to talk to him about. It's not for lack of effort or lack of care. I just think there's some times where you have to have some better decisions. And you're thinking maybe those decisions, he's taking more chances and trying to do more than he might even be capable of or should have to shoulder because there's really not a lot of help on the club. Is that what you're kind of...
He doesn't trust others to be able to do it.
Okay.
So this is just my guess.
Right.
I've just played on teams like this where you don't trust other people. So then you go, all right, well, I'm going to try. Instead of moving the puck here, I've got to carry it myself.
That's how I feel about the show that you and I do. I feel like I have to shoulder more of the responsibility. Hey-o. Thank you.
So that's just going to be my guess is he's now seeing a 10-game sample size of, well, not much else is going to produce offense other than me. I got to do everything.
You must have felt that way during slow pitch softball. Because
then I made that mistake. I made the mistake by hitting the ball over the fence.
Exactly, that's right.
Question number 2.
All Vikings, let's win this game. You'll hear us yell for more.
It's now time to take an in-depth look at the state of the skull.
Vikings, let's go!
ESPN.com had a NFL trade deadline column today. Ooh. And for who the Vikings could target, they said Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins. Please. They wrote, it's too obvious to ignore. The Vikings are expected to get McCarthy back this week, but he struggled when he played this season, 23.2 QBR. The Carson Wentz backup experiment was largely a failure, and this team has too much potential to waste this season. So my question for you, Common, would you like the purple to acquire Kirk Cousins?
Well, look, here's what I'll say. I get what they're saying about potential of the team. And look, I was the guy that as of just last 2-3 weeks, I said, well, we had text messengers saying, this team's going nowhere. The writing's on the wall. Let's play McCarthy so we can see what we have. I said, I object, Your Honor. This team was built to win now. They've invested a lot of money. And it's too early in the season to give up on it, especially when Wentz first started playing. The Vikings were 1-1, I think. They were in the thick of things. And Wentz went 2-1 in his first 3 games. But the way I look at it now is with the rest of the defense is awful. I mean, literally, they've been awful. I can't say it any other way. I know there's probably metrics. Like, for instance, they gave up 28 points to the Eagles. One of those was a pick 6, I believe. But nevertheless, the defense can't stop the run. They're giving up huge chunks of yards. They're just not as electrifying as they were the past couple of years. And maybe that can change. Maybe there's extenuating circumstances watching the All-22 that I have not seen that I don't know. Also, they don't have a running game. The offensive line is in tatters. So I feel like I'm now coming around at this point, now that we've seen, and again, at 3-4, I guess you're not out of it. But McCarthy is the future of the club, or at least you do need to find out if he is. I don't mind bringing in another quarterback. I've had enough of Kirk Cousins. I just don't think Kirk Cousins is that good. What
has he shown you in the last year and a half?
Nothing.
I don't know if he's any better than Max Brosmer at this point.
He just played last week for the Falcons, and he was mediocre at best. I watched part of the game. Deuce was watching it because he had
spread swing implications,
so he wanted to watch it. Cousins was just it's like, so no, I don't mind going after another quarterback, but the idea of Cousins plus he makes a boatload of money. I understand when you make trades, a lot of time the team that's unloading that player will pay a lot of the salary. But I have no interest in the days of Kirk Cousins are over. And I don't think he would, if he came in here right now, and even if the offensive line became healthy, the defense played better, Cousins isn't the guy. I'd rather go with Max Brosmer.
I'm with you.
I'd rather go with Wentz, really, to be honest.
I'd rather go with Wolford.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe not that far.
And that's it for today's edition of 5 Questions. Well, actually, 3 questions, but 5 sounds like more than 4.
What time do you want to do the head coach, Timmy? What time is...
I say we do it now, after the segment.
Let's do that. Let's take a break, come back. We'll hear from the head coach of the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings. But right now, by the way, that was 534. You just heard the close. Tennessee has a keyword for us.
The fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Just enter the keyword $. At KFAN.com now for your shot to win. That keyword is $. Enter now at KFAN.com. Bonus Bucks is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com. Bonus Bucks is presented by 2 men in a junk truck.
bouncy. What's the name of this one?
Something changes.
Hey, yeah, something changes. I like it. It's bouncy. Speaking of changes, there'll be changes in the starting quarterback position for the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings, regardless of who it is, because Wentz certainly out. He's on IR. Head coach of the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, with his midweek news conference.
Going to have a critical stretch, 8 straight weeks where we'll have Sunday games, allowing our team to have, full, good weeks of preparation, and obviously an NFC North game on the road. We're 1-0 this year in the NFC North. We've got to try to compete like crazy in a really talented division, a tough place to go play. Dan Campbell, one of the best head coaches in the NFL, getting his team ready to play. So it's going to be a challenge, coming off of a little extra time, continuing to, get some guys, recovered and rested, and looking forward to getting on the practice field today. As you guys saw, we did put Carson Wentz on injured reserve and signed John Wolford to the practice squad. Carson is just, he's been, everything we had hoped and more when he arrived, from a veteran experience guy that, clearly loves football, loves everything about, what he's joined here in Minnesota, and it's been fun. Coaching Carson, can't say enough about his just desire to compete and play and try to take advantage of the opportunity that he had to help us win, and he did that twice and played some really good football for us throughout, with so many things happening to our team and being kind of a steady force during that time. Just want to commend him for that, and he's going to get fixed up. Also have his baby girl, and still be around our quarterback room and be around our young guys in that room, as a real foundational piece in that room, with all of his experiences to go along with it. But JJ McCarthy will have a full week of preparation. He's in a really good place from a health standpoint, and has been really he's made multiple comments to me about just the throughout the rehab, but being able to watch Carson play the position, play it as a new player in our offense, and see ways he was able to distribute the football, get the ball out of his hands, completions, and the positive effect that had on the offense in every capacity. So excited about getting on the field. Got some other guys working their way back as well, and feel good about where our team's going to be at to go attack this week of practice. Open it up to you guys.
When you talk to Carson about it, can you offer some insight in just the decisions that are happening in the second half Thursday about whether to leave him in or whether to pull him out of the game?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the starting point of when he first kind of sustained the injury against Cleveland, able to come back in the game and finish that game, and then we were able to kind of determine with further testing that he had a torn labrum in his non-throwing kind of left shoulder, and our medical team, which, between our training staff and doctors here locally, which I believe is the best in the National Football League, but then also consulting, so, the top people in their fields, orthopedic surgeon wise. And, it was determined that if Carson wanted to give it a go, he could, and it would be more of a kind of a pain tolerance thing. But he was able to, get his strength and feel like he was capable of going in and playing. He had some really good practices, and we felt encouraged by giving Carson the opportunity to kind of make the call and then commit to it, and he did that, and just the competitiveness and the ability to what he showed his teammates, and a lot of things about loving football and competing and trying to leave it all out there for your team. As a coach, you want to give players the opportunity to do that, but always after you consult with the medical staff, and that consultation has to begin and start with the player and the medical staff. And as a coach, you have to allow that to happen before you're a part of the conversations at all. And then the conversations are purely, in what's in the best interest of the player. And at that point, Carson thought what was in the best interest of him was getting to play football and quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, and felt, equipped and capable to do that. in regards to the second half, it was one of those things where after, every drive, you can visually see that he took some hits and was in pain. And making sure, before we put him back on the field that really the dynamic had not changed. It was just circumstances of, him kind of managing it. And then when the time came to take him out of the game, it was a football decision and wanted to make sure that, we did right by him there late in the game when it was kind of out of reach. But the way we operate, where we believe we're out of reach might be a little different than how folks watching the game might believe it to be. And we've had some games where, thank goodness, we had that mindset because we found a way to win some of those. And that's just the belief that the guys have. And when you got a guy like that that's committed to play through something, as long as the medical staff doesn't give me any new information to that, that's kind of how that took place.
When it comes to letting him play in the second half and whatnot, and him telling you he's good to go, was there ever a thought in your mind where it's like, maybe I should protect this guy and pull him out because he's taking a beating here?
Yeah, I think, once again, like there is a level as the coach where your responsibility, as much as I care for these players and the relationships that I've built with these players, that's always there, for sure. But at the same time, I think it's, if the medical staff is giving you information and the player is giving you information to kind of confirm that, it becomes a football decision at that point to go along with what's in the best interest of the health of the player. And when he's deemed to be really, we went into this thing knowing it was kind of a pain tolerance situation and he would be able to play through it and not make it worse until he inevitably had to, make the decision that we met and talked about to get the surgery. You have an obligation also to the player to let them, compete and see it through to a certain point where then you have to be smart as a head coach and do what's best for the player.
So independent of where the game's at or, whether you're close or still in it or not, like what's in your mind, and maybe it's different for every coach, but in your mind, like what's the level that independent of all those things, if a guy is in pain, you take him out just for that reason?
Yeah, I think there's an absolute level there, and I think you have to make that decision. And ultimately, that's not a decision you make solely, Kevin, on your own. It comes with a lot more, people from a lot more people with expertise, and can then ultimately, when you ask a player, like, can you still go? Is it? Can you go out there and play? And they said absolutely nothing's changed. It's just, I can still go. You then have to make the decision, as the head coach, and that's my responsibility.
You're seeing him, like, I don't know how much you can see from the side. He referenced that people on the sidelines can't always see what the TV copy shows, but yeah. Are you seeing the expressions on his face?
No, I mean, that's, I know the TV copies, especially in those games where there's they see everything, you're trying to, you're trying to see it as much as you can, and then really it comes down to the dialogue with the player, and after the medical staff's had a chance to check in with him as well. So as visible as it is to everybody, I understand that, but no, you don't always get the, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, sometimes. There might be conversation with the official going on. There might be conversation with the special teams unit, regarding the punt, possible fakes, things like that things come up where you just can't be in pure observation mode, especially the way that my role here is as the head coach and the play caller and having direct dialogue with Flo and Matt Daniels as well. So I'd love to be able to say that I see it all. That's where you fall back on the great staff that we do have, and you try to make the best decision with all the information that you do have, with the most important information being, especially with a veteran player who's been through, quite a few things in his career and has a total understanding of exactly, where his body's at and the commitment he made to play. You lean into that conversation, as much as you do what the doctors are telling you.
When you're balancing the football decision piece of this with the player, doing the best interest of the player, how do you make that determination of when it's reached a point from a football perspective that, hey, there's no more to be gained from this and it's time to make the move?
Yeah, I think that's where probably the line might be different for some folks compared to either the guy competing on the field or, the team. That line might be different, but there's absolutely a time for that, Ben, and I know that, and I think you guys know that I know that. I think in this circumstance, we managed the injury with as much communication as possible, as much information gathering as possible, as much dialogue with the player to make sure that everybody knew exactly what the situation was, and he had played in a game against the Eagles and kind of played the whole game and really had no significant issues. So it was a circumstance of he took some hits in that game as well, and might have had some similar reactions like a lot of guys do when they take some of those hits. That's part of playing the quarterback position, and unfortunately with some of the circumstances we've had with our offense, that's become far too normal, and we've got to continue to work to rectify those things and also get as healthy as we can at certain spots. So definitely something that from a standpoint of managing injuries, I feel very good about our protocols, our people in place, and I think over the time that I've been the head coach here, I think that's stood up pretty well.
Kevin, with JJ, just to be clear, is there anything left that you need to see from him physically in practice, or as of now he's ready to go?
Kevin, just going back to Thursday night, knowing Carson's situation and knowing that you don't want to put Max in the suboptimal spot, is there ever thought to adding another quarterback who might be more capable in that position?
There's always, we're always going to try to make sure that we can realistically do whatever we can. But I think the unique factor of, our plane left to go to Los Angeles on Wednesday, about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So you're really talking about trying to gauge the information on where JJ was at. We worked him out Tuesday morning. You start to see the timeline of once again, that's much more than just adding somebody here locally that can just drive, hop in the car and get here in a few minutes. It's, bringing people in, physicals, and then that's not even talking about some of the, the installation and the teaching that needs to take place to have that person here and ready to contribute where they can protect themselves just by being able to do their jobs. And I think it's a valid question, Alec. I just, under those circumstances, I think we tried to handle it the best way we could.
JJ, what did you take away or learn from him about those first two games and the subsequent time now? And do you have to adjust your play caller mindset at all to more fit him as opposed to what might be the optimal play with a veteran quarterback, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Starting out, first part of your question, I think what we learned in the Chicago game was, he was able to overcome, and our team was able to overcome a slower start than what we hoped for the season. But then, going back and watching that game and, I watched it with JJ recently, just looking at some of the principles of how he played and when, the moments in the second half where we were able to, I think we generated 170 yards in the final 17 minutes of the game. He had a ton to do with that just by simply being efficient with his feet and being accurate because of that and, reading progressions and putting the ball in play and throwing completions, and then we were able to run the ball as well, and it kind of married all together. I do think there was, some unique circumstances with that second game. I've said that before. Against Atlanta, from his family circumstances of being blessed with a child that week and missing some practice time. As a matter of fact, almost all of it, besides that Friday practice, which, as you guys know, is just not the significant amount of preparation time that you're looking for a young quarterback to then go out and take that practice preparation to the game. And then on top of that, the injury happened, which, could have had a little bit more impact on his lower body mechanics. than had he not sustained that injury, as far as a consistency and doing it the same way every time. He's had some time to obviously get back on the practice field and spend a lot of time with Josh and myself and our guys, during practice, after practice. He's worked at it, and now we get to kind of continue hopefully the progression that we kind of started the season on, of going out there. Is it going to be perfect? No, and it doesn't have to be. It just needs to be clear and obvious that to me that he's got a good grasp on doing his job, technique, fundamentals, progressions, and I believe in his talent and his ability that will show up. And then in regards to your second question, or second part of the question, I think you're always trying to match what the player can go out there and exceed with. What do they do well? Not only the quarterback, but our whole group. And ultimately figure out the best way to try to then attack what you're getting from a defensive standpoint to try to put your players in a good situation. And that may be different from Carson to JJ based upon, their ability to execute some things.
With JJ, to go back now, because that Falcons game has come up a lot, and missed practice. Is there a part of you that regrets playing him that week against the Falcons?
It's one of those things where we know now that, a lot of the things we're talking about, it's, we know now or after the fact or things like that. I did feel like when we got him back here on that Friday, I did feel like he had a lot of juice and he had a pretty good day that day. But that, transitioning to every phase of a game plan for a game plan against a good defense, and Atlanta's turned out to be a pretty darn good one defensively. I don't regret in any way doing that, because he was also coming off of, I believe he was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, and he was healthy, and it's hard to take that guy off the field at that point, where we had just 6 days earlier seen him kind of carry the momentum of the end of that game into the locker room, where, it was a pretty significant moment for a young player in his first start.
JJ having athleticism be part of his game, how difficult is that to balance, knowing when to use that, but also knowing when he needs to get the ball out quickly to avoid some of the sacks?
Yeah, I think it's part of what young player, we can talk about it as much as possible, and then you're in that moment, whether it's the third down, first down, second down, in the red zone, a chance to score. Only, the player, he just needs reps. He just needs time of, the repetition that you can't get, with a VR headset on. You can't get answers to those questions necessarily wearing a red jersey on the practice field. I think he understands it, and he knows how valuable he is to our team, and the reps for him and continual reps for him and the value of that. So we've talked about it, and I think it is part of his game, though. I think it's an underrated part of his game, but that mindset of protecting myself within the sequence of the down, where, we can not only be in position for the next down, but we maintain the ability for him to keep playing quarterback is critical.
Is your backup this week and going forward?
Yes.
You mentioned watching the Bears game with him recently. What was the impetus for that? And then what did you take from that?
It wasn't just the Bears game. It was also the Atlanta game, and kind of going back, because I think visually there's some things there that, are kind of, I think visual sometimes is the best form of teaching, when a guy can see themselves doing it, and then see the difference between the two, and then you figure out the why. And I think there's a lot of circumstances, as we kind of just talked about, with maybe the root causes of the inconsistency from one game to the next. But then you most importantly talk about the how we're going to fix it and how we're going to do some things to make sure that we can get you in a rhythm and get you playing with great, base, body, balance, position. I know I've used that term 1,000 times with you, but it's real, and it's a real thing to consistently play the position. And there's ways to rep it and drill it, and then you got to bring those things to each play, regardless of how the previous play went, how the next play is going to go. You got those things that you can control from a do your job standpoint yourself at an NFL level, is what JJ's continuously working to make sure that he does. And when he does that, there's been some really good visual evidence of, him playing quarterback.
Time for two more questions, guys.
Josh Oliver's outlook coming off the other night with his foot ankle.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. He's got a kind of a foot sprain. where he'll likely not have a chance to participate this week, and ultimately we'll be able to probably reevaluate him next week. But the good news is, where X-rays and everything came back to a point where we avoided kind of that longer term injury with Josh, and I know he's really excited about that. But as with his injury and all the other injuries this year, that'll be something that he'll be working on his rehab as hard as possible to get back when he's able to give it a go, and he feels like he can make that return. He'll be huge to be back in there. Thank you.
There you go. That's the head coach of the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings. Tenneby, I would say that text message I received during the news conference basically sums everything up. It says this: the once Max Phil Fuller like youthful cheer and glow of KOC's voice is now long gone. Instead, he is sunk to the sullen, sad tones we so often hear from Tenneby. KOC is becoming the new Tenneby. Sad, really.
I always love that.
I can relate.
You can relate.
Yeah.
Those sad, sullen tones when you realize the predicament you've gotten yourself into. For 17 years. Yeah. Is it 17 years or 20 years? How long? It's 20 years.
You and I have been together for 20 years, yeah.
Sad predicament you're in. There's no escape from it.
No.
It's like a death sentence. And there you are. And so he's got the sad, sullen tones that we so often hear from Tenneby. Do you know who Warren Sharp is?
Yes.
He's at Sharp Football. Sharp. Razor Sharp. He writes, the Vikings have played the number one easiest schedule this year. They play the number one hardest schedule the rest of the season.
Yeah, I've mentioned that.
Yeah. Through 8 weeks, there are only 3 wins. Versus Browning, Gabriel, and Caleb Williams. They still have the Packers twice, Lions twice, Seahawks, Ravens, Cowboys, Commanders, etc.
Not only that, but if you look past this year and look long term, they also have one of the oldest rosters.
They do indeed. I'm not even sure the coach was real convinced with his answers regarding how they handled the Wentz situation. He sounded like, well, I got to say it this way because I don't want to take any responsibility or act like we did anything wrong. So I'll just keep saying it. But I don't think he necessarily, I don't think it'll happen again. Put it this way. It goes back to Tenneby. I'll say it this way. I brought up the analogy with Rosen yesterday with the Thriller in Manila. Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, 14 rounds toe-to-toe. Both said it was the closest they ever felt to death. And Joe wanted to go out for the 14th round. I mean, the championship was on the line. It was a close fight. And Eddie Futch, who was Joe Frazier's cornerman, said, you've had enough. I'm going to put you on ice. And that's what it happens in fighting all the. Every fighter wants to continue to play, right? To fight. Rarely does a fighter go, I've had enough. I mean, the late Scott Ledoux, he fought Larry Holmes for the heavyweight championship of the world. His eye was swollen shut. Referee stopped the fight. Ring doctor, referee stopped the fight. I think it was a ring doctor. And they asked Scott afterwards, he said, well, you were annoyed that they stopped the fight. The doctor said you could have lost your eye. And he said, what's an eye when you've given your heart? Ledoux would have kept fighting. So Wentz isn't going to call. Wentz isn't going to leave the game on his own. So you have to. You do have to. And I just think it was easier to keep Wentz in there than because they're not going to put McCarthy in there at that point, and I didn't even want to put Brosmer. Though I think the coach alluded to it during that news conference about still having a chance to win. Brosmer would have given you a better chance to win. I mean, just because I think it was pretty hard for Wentz to ignore that pain, and he wasn't very effective either. But it's water under the bridge. It'll all pass now. But yeah, a number of people weighed in with the same thing, including this one that said, the answer regarding when to pull Carson out was the most KO clueless response I've ever heard. Another one said, a football decision? How about a human decision? The guy was getting killed out there. And there are others that felt the same way. We'll break. We'll come back. We're closed circuit to stations all along the Common Man Radio Network. We're straddling the quarter hour. Mark Rosen will join us just before the top of the hour here at the Fan.
KFAN welcomes Trans-Siberian Orchestra for 2 amazing shows at Target Center on December 28th at 3 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. Tickets are on sale now. Get complete show details, including a link to buy tickets at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Couple 13-14 past Common Man program. Common 10 to be soon to be joined by the legendary Mark Rosen of Channel 4 Sports. Your whole life, just sports fame. Barry from Blaine texts. He says, I think you let that blame shifting and abrogation of responsibility as a human and coach go on plenty long. Could have cut it off well before you did. I'm a doc who's been on the sidelines. With respect, the medical staff was wrong and the coach was wrong. The obligation was not to let the player decide. As a competitor, the judgment questions of this group were just compounded, and I tend to agree with that. It's not up to the player. And then this one, I think, really sort of sums it up pretty well, because this is what I believe. It says, KOC talked in circles about Wentz. He knows he messed up. And I think he does know that they should not have let you continue. I mean, he did the old, well, they asked him, well, couldn't you see him on the field? Grimacing, no, I'm talking to an official, or I can't really see what's going on. He basically said, the medical staff said he was fine. Wentz said he was fine, so I went with it. So he took no responsibility in any way, shape, or form.
I also felt like he was directly talking to me when he talked about, the people saying, ripping him for leaving him in too long, saying, well, we've had many times in the past where, the fans and media might have thought we were out of it, but we came back and won those games.
Yeah.
You were down 21 in the fourth quarter, and when Wentz was out there, you were showing no signs of mounting a comeback.
That is correct.
It was over.
Pizza Engineering guy has been a long time listener to the Common Man program, and we text and talk more than most people know. He will email me, and as always, if you email comment at KFAN.com, he will respond to you. He's a big Wisconsin sports fan. Bucks, Brewers, and Packers. And I think Badgers as well. He says, I'm not watching the World Series this year, and I may never again. He says, the only way to really follow baseball anymore is to separate the season, which a small market built from players they developed, most of whom they drafted, but certainly were not stars before Milwaukee brought them in, can still be the best team in baseball, from the postseason. They easily won the regular season, where it takes a whole team. You can't just rotate your 3 Cy Young starters for any given series, taking advantage of the days off, which you can do. That is true, because the way it works, you're not playing 6 days a week. You're playing a game or two, you're taking time off, so you can just go with so I agree with him there. Says a small market team can't really do that ever. They were the highest scoring team in the regular season. Now he's talking Brewers. They were the highest scoring team in the regular season, easily the best team from the All-Star break on, except for the 2 weeks where they rested players instead of trying to win games, and finished with the best record in MLB. The 3 pitchers they faced just made $118 million. Just 3 starters, 2 Cy Young pitchers, and Ohtani. Milwaukee's payroll was $122 million, the entire team. And one of their starting pitchers, Woodruff, who returned from a 1.5-season surgery break and was 8-1 in the second half, was unavailable and replaced by a minor league call-ups. They were the highest scoring team during the season against normal pitching, even 6-0 versus the Dodgers, who, couldn't set up 3 Cy Young pitchers in a row twice during the regular season. So that's it. Playoffs are cooked against teams without expensive stars. The regular season isn't really. So it still can be fun watching baseball all summer, but I'm probably not watching postseason ever again. And I understand he's bitter. He had emailed me earlier. He thought the Brewers are going to win the whole thing because they are a very good team. They could win hitting the ball long. They could play small ball, do a lot of things. But I will say Toronto isn't having a lot of trouble right now. That series is tied at 2 games apiece, and they could just as easily have won that game 3. I mean, they had runners in scoring position a couple of different times late in that game. So I understand he makes some salient points, if that's the right word. It doesn't mean you can't win. They beat Ohtani last night. When you got a guy like Guerrero hitting a home run, I mean, they beat Ohtani last night. He's not unbeatable. I know he's really good. And I know, look, he's not a fit here in Minnesota. I get that. That's already been established. But you can win. That series is tied at 2 games apiece. There were those that after game 3 basically said, well, now Dodgers will just win the next 2 games and wrap things up. They're a really good team. They're stacked. They've got a really expensive roster. I get all that, but and they could very well end up winning the Fall Classic, or they could win the next 2 in a row and win 4 games to 2. It certainly is possible, but I'll take my chance with the Blue Jays. That's a gutty team, and it goes to show you that you don't have to have the biggest payroll and you can compete. Well, we'll break. We'll come back. We'll welcome the legendary Mark Rosen in next. Common Man program on the Fan.